Hello, can everyone hear me? This is my first ever YouTube live stream, so it's a bit of an experiment here. I was going to be starting a painting, but we'll just see how many people are going to be online first. So if you come and say hello in the chat, I'll just see how many people are here. Okay. Okay, as I say, this is the first ever live stream I've done on YouTube, so it's a bit of an experiment. I just want to see how it works. That's part of the reason I'm doing this as well. Oh, okay. Hi, JP from Canada. Hello. How's it going? It's I think it's just after 5 o'clock in the morning here in New Zealand. But anyway, as there's people rolling in at the moment, I'll just show you what I was going to paint. And it's this scene here. So this was a gouache painting that I did. And one of the things I really want to capture in the scene is these clouds here. So I've got that all kind of sketched out. And what else have we got? Also did a pencil sketch for that. Hello, Jean. From the USA, awesome. Okay, so there's my pencil sketch. So anyway, we'll make a start. Anyway, there's a few people here. Hopefully you'll stick around. Maybe perhaps I should have scheduled the live stream to give people more warning, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll make a start. Right, so here's my pencil sketch. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this onto there. I've got my reference photo just on my computer right there. So that's what I'm going to be painting. And will you be painting with oils? Yes, I'm painting with oils. So let me just explain my setup. So basically I'm painting on some loose linen here that I've taped to a board. So this measures about 10 inches by 10 inches. I quite often like doing this. I was actually able to get these pieces of linen. They were offcuts and they were being sold cheap in an art store. So it's a good way of getting a nice size that you want. And the advantage of painting on loose linen is that if you want to sell your paintings, they're actually really easy to ship. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing there. So I'm painting with oils. I'll start sketching out the composition and I'll explain the colors I'm using in just a moment. Hi from Estonia. Hello, Gustav. Nice to have you here. So this is where you can try and like sort of roughly find the middle of your painting. So if you sort of imagine a kind of like diagonal line like that, and then probably around here is probably around the middle. So I'm just making a light mark. I'm using Liquin as my medium because it helps to speed up the drying time. And yeah, we'll make a start on sketching out the composition. So we've got like a sort of grassy foreground here. So these trees are kind of on a slope. Well, the trees I'll be painting in a moment anyway. And yeah, I'll go over the colours I'm using. So I'm using titanium white, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue and phthalo green. So sort of relatively simple palette there, but I reckon you can paint pretty much any landscape with those colours. So one of the main focal areas of this painting is this stand of poplar trees here, which I'm just marking in now. So I'm just marking in the sort of basic shapes of them. So another feature of this composition is we're going for a kind of a low horizon here. So I really want to make a feature of the sky. But the stand of trees is kind of like one of the main focal areas in the painting. So one of the really important thing is that I don't want this in the middle of the composition. So here I've got it more to the sort of left of the center. If I was to put it right in the middle, it would just cause a really displeasing static in the composition, and it just wouldn't look anywhere near as good. So yeah, I'd always avoid centered objects. And yeah, make your area of interest away from the middle. So there's a couple of trees down here, and probably now we'll pop this tree here. There's like some trees and some bushes along here, and then this is the edge of the lake, so I'm marking that in right like that. So if you guys have got any questions as I'm painting, as I say, this is the first ever live stream, so apologies if it's a bit rough, or I'm literally recording this on my iPhone. We'll see how it goes with the live streams anyway, and maybe I can do more of them in the future. So it's just something I wanted to try. And yeah, I thought it'd be cool to, as I paint, answer your questions as they come in. If you've got any questions about painting, then feel free to ask me. Okay. So there's a mountain here in the background. Okay, so we'll mark that in. So is anyone here in the chat, are you painters at all? Do you like to paint with oils? Right, and there's a mountain over here. And there's also a background mountain in the distance. There's not going to be too much emphasis on the sort of mid-ground of this landscape. Might even make that tree a little bit bigger. Doesn't need to be too big. I think that'll do it. Okay. Right, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark out the general outline of the cloud. So this is, as I say, what I wanted to have as a feature of the painting here. So basically, the time of year I took the reference photo, this is in Queenstown in southern New Zealand, which is where this live stream is coming from. It's just after 5 o'clock in the morning here. And yeah, so it was a kind of springtime, and you get like a kind of lot of showers. And it's like the equivalent of, I mean, I grew up in England anyway, but it's like the equivalent of April showers, where you get those like sort of heavy squally showers. And it was a good day for getting cloud reference for paintings, because clouds, in my opinion, they can really, really make a landscape painting. And I just think they're fascinating, so I really like painting them. So I just wanted this kind of like real big cloud in here as part of the painting. So actually probably change that a bit. Anyway, that should be all right. Okay, so that's roughly the composition sketched out. There's probably going to be a few main stems and branches here. Oh, we got a question. Hang on, let me just give me a moment. Oh, cool. Here we go. I've got my computer set up in the corner so I can see the chat. Okay, let's see. I just saw a question there from Chris. Let's have a look. Chris Creative. My question would be, one day is demo, how to paint sandy scenes with many little rocks or bowl of rice in oil. Tough. Yes, I mainly use oils. Thanks for the cloud demo. Awesome. How to paint a sandy scene. So are you talking about painting like a beach with some rocks in it? I certainly paint seascapes as well, which obviously have sand in it and stuff. And oops, hang on, sorry about that. I'm just knocked my phone there. I can certainly make some more videos on painting beach scenes. Right. Okay. Let's make a start. Where did I put my brush holder? Okay, that's disappeared. Never mind. Right, so I'm going to make a start on, blocking in the painting anyway. So basically, when I start a painting, the first thing I think about is where are all the dark values and shadows in the scene that I'm painting. So value is how light or dark your subject is. So it's a really important thing to keep in mind when, just any type of painting, but especially painting landscapes, because that's really going to make or break it. So if you want that kind of recession in the landform, so your hills and mountains looking like they're in the distance, and this is where we really need to understand values. And the general rule of thumb is you'll find your darkest darks and your lightest lights in the foreground, but then as the landforms recedes, see the darks aren't as dark and the lights aren't as light. So even the lights can be a little bit darker, but certainly the darks get lighter as they go into the distance. So that's something to keep in mind. So especially when you're painting things like skies and clouds, they're actually often some of the more lighter values to be found in the landscape. Obviously, it depends on the weather conditions and that kind of thing. But if you've got some stormy clouds, it might be a bit darker. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually just going to start off by marking in the shadows of the clouds, and I'm going to be referring to my little gouache sketch as well. I don't know if you've tried painting with gouache as well. I've been painting with it more recently actually, and I'm finding it's a really great medium to use because you can knock out some paintings, at least some small gouache sketches, pretty quickly, and I found it's a really good part of my painting design process. So if I want to design a painting, hang on, I just want to take a quick photo of this. If I want to design a painting, then a small gouache sketch is actually a really good way of just quickly deciding if it's going to work and whether it's worth pursuing that project further without having to invest too much time in it. So with this one here, I did a couple of quick thumbnail sketches, and then this took me probably about an hour and a half to paint, and then I decided, I want to turn this into an oil painting. So I did a proper pencil sketch, and now I'm demonstrating this to you now. So we'll see how this turns out. So I'm going to start marking in the cloud shadows. I'm using a number 5 flat brush here. These are made by Rosemary & Co. I've got to figure out what the process is after the live stream's finished, but I can always link it in the description below afterwards. But the colours I'm using is ultramarine blue with burnt sienna, titanium white, quite a lot of titanium white, and a little alizarin crimson. So I find this color combination it's probably one of the most useful color combinations you can use in landscape paintings, in my opinion, because you can create some really beautiful neutral greys, natural looking colors. And so it's great for clouds, things like rock and mountain shadows and hills, as I say, shadows and rocks and stones. It's really, really useful. I might just add some more titanium white into this mix. So basically what's happening here is the the ultramarine blue and the titanium white are kind of like the dominant colors in this mix. And I prefer to more edge it on the blue side just because it makes the colors look cleaner in my opinion. And clouds, a lot of the time, they kind of have a sort of blue cast to them anyway. So yeah, what's happening is the burnt sienna, it helps to desaturate the blue, and that's because burnt sienna is actually a dark orange. So orange is opposite to blue on the color wheel. So when they're combined, they kind of cancel each other out and they have a desaturating effect. So yeah. So what I'm doing even with this mix is I'm even adding a bit more titanium white because I want to sort of create some texture within the cloud in just a moment. But as I say, we're just getting in the kind of dark values in first. So this cloud shadow, and I want it to be a kind of sort of a bit of a kind of heavy looking cloud, you know, with some like rain in the distance. So yeah, as I say, yeah, keep those questions coming in. Happy to answer them. Alrighty. Okay, there's some quite heavy cloud over here. So when I'm another thing when I'm blocking in a painting, because I like a kind of, I'm trying to like find that medium between sort of a loose painterly style and sort of loose brushwork, but also with a bit of detail as well. So when I'm in the blocking stage like now, I'm not worried about detail at all, and that's why I use kind of like bigger brushes, sort of the biggest brushes I can get away with really. Could probably even go bigger than this actually if I wanted to. But yeah, nice just loose gestural brush marks. So so look, I've got my kind of just some shadow there. And what I'll do is in just a moment I'll be coming back to add the highlights in the clouds, and I'll do a bit of mixing on the canvas as well. So and there's probably a bit of shadow in those distant clouds as well, just above this mountain. Alrighty, so I'll just leave that for the moment, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of move on to the next tier of depth in the scene that I'm painting, and that's these mountains here. So these are obviously a lot darker in value than the clouds are going to be. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to use my same kind of paint mix that I used just a moment ago for the clouds, and I'm just going to make the value darker. So I'm mixing in more ultramarine blue and some more burnt sienna and some more alizarin crimson. I'm only using the tiniest amount of alizarin crimson because it's has a reasonable kind of tinting strength to it, so I don't want to use too much because otherwise, yeah, using too much it would make the colour look awful, so we don't want that. So I want to kind of, yeah, like a sort of bluish colour with just a really sort of subtle violet undertone. So let's see what we're doing here. So I'm actually using the same brush here, so we'll just mark that in and we'll see what that. I think that's going to be a little bit too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix in a bit more titanium white. Let's see. And we'll see what this looks like. I'll just clean my brush quickly. Okay, that should be okay, that colour. So where's everyone from today? As I said a moment ago, I'm in New Zealand at the moment. Now the other thing about sketching out in burnt sienna is when you come to paint, or when you start to start blocking in your painting, especially painting these clouds, it doesn't really matter if the burnt sienna mix is in, because I've already got that in my mix already. So we've got that distant mountain there. There's a bit of shadow on these mountains as well. So I'm kind of using like relatively thin layers of paint to start with. As I say, this is mixed in with Liquin Original, but when I come on to the next session on this, I'll be using much thicker layers of paint. So really, you want to start with thinner layers and then work in thicker layers with oil paints, and that's because even though they're touch dry, I mean, this painting should be touch dry within a day or two because I'm using the Liquin, but it actually takes months for oil paints to sort of really properly kind of dry. And when that happens, the paint layers can move. So if you haven't applied them properly, you risk your painting getting cracks in them. And that has happened to me many years ago, and I learned from that. So that's something to keep an eye out for. So that's why I start off with these sort of thinner layers of paint. Now there's kind of like a sort of darker kind of hill around in this section that I'm just marking in here. So again, the same color mix. I've just got now like less titanium white in the mix. Ah, cool. We've got some more questions. Jay Calcott, welcome. Hello from Connecticut in the USA. Awesome. Just tuned in. Is there a reference photo, or is this being spontaneously made up? No, there is a reference photo. I'll show you right here. I've actually got my computer next to me, so this is what we're painting. Yeah, I can't figure out how I could put the reference photo in the live stream. Maybe that's something I can look into. I'm pretty new to live streaming, so bear with me, but I'll do my best. Awesome. And Zoe White, Northeast England. Awesome. Yes, I am from England myself. I grew up in Exeter in Devon in the southwest, but I live in New Zealand now. I've been in New Zealand for about 14 years. Still not even sure why I came here, but came here on a working holiday visa and ended up staying. Okay, cool. So, yeah, we've got these darks in. So the next areas of dark values are going to be in these trees. So I'm going to be using a different colour for this one. Let's get another paintbrush. Okay, here we go. So trees are actually some of the darkest values to be found in the landscape. So if we just go through the values, you've got your skies, clouds, generally the more lighter values to be found in the landscape, and then things like grass as well is also pretty light. And then you've got things like like your mountains and hills, they tend to be much darker in value. And then the darkest values to be found are usually in your uprights, which is the trees. So trees, especially when they're in stands of trees or forests, you get a lot of occlusion shadows. And then things like conifer trees are just naturally, dark in value. They're dark coloured foliage. But in this case, these poplar trees that I'm going to be painting in a moment, because it's spring, I've found that things like poplars and willows and sycamores, that's in America you call them sycamore maples, but in England we call them sycamores. But they're I've noticed the foliage is quite a lot lighter in spring, and then it sort of darkens as it gets into the summer. But certainly, if you want your trees to stand out in the landscape, you really do need to pay attention to your values. And in general, you probably want to make your trees darker than the grass surrounding it. So I'm just marking in loosely just where these kind of like main shadows are. So as I say, at this stage, it's just getting the main darks in there, because then basically once I've got those darks in, it makes it a whole lot easier to paint the areas that are in light and then get the saturation of the colour correct as well. So this is what I've found is the easiest way to do it, because you've already got like a sort of tonal dynamic that you're building up in the painting. So it's like here we're near to the foreground, so this is where our darkest darks are going to be, and then there's also some trees in the distance in the midground, but they're pretty dark as well. And then we've got this tier of mountains, so they're further away, so they're getting lighter in value, and then we've got the clouds. So painting in this way, painting my darks first, I actually learned this from painting outdoors on plein air. And I learned this from some other artists, because when you're painting outdoors, it's like a race against time, because the light's changing, often the weather conditions are changing. So you want to get your dark values in first, because then it doesn't matter if the light changes. And yeah, as I say, it just makes it much easier to paint in the light values afterwards, and also get the the saturation of your color correct. Saturation, it's also known as chroma as well, so you're more likely to find your most saturated colors in the foreground. But I think we're off to a pretty good start here. So yeah, there's just a few trees over here. I mean, as I say, detail at this stage I'm not worrying about. At the moment, it's almost like a kind of it's like a map to work on that I'm creating, so that once it's dry, I can then start adding the detail. Let's just see if we've got any more questions. Okay, so Zoe says, I love painting trees, but do struggle with them. Yeah, trees, they're not always the easiest thing to paint. I've certainly done a few videos on painting trees on my YouTube channel, so I'll definitely make some more videos on those. And yeah, I mean, I'm mainly a landscape painter. That's my favorite thing to paint. Also paint seascapes. I'm also branching out into painting other things as well, but landscapes is my thing. Let's see, we've got another question here. Hi Samuel, I lost the beginning of the live. Is the painting canvas without stretching? Is this a cheap way of practicing more paintings? Yes, it definitely is. Yeah, I was able to get these. This is linen, so these are linen canvases, and I actually got them from an art shop, and they were offcuts. But yeah, the cool thing is you can tape the size of the painting that you actually want, and you can stretch it on. You can put it on stretcher bars afterwards, and there's other ways of mounting it as well. So yeah, it's a great way of creating loads of painting without it taking up too much space in your studio as well. Also, if you want to sell them, it's a lot cheaper to send these through the post than canvases that are on stretcher bars. So yeah, many advantages for it. Also, if you're painting outdoors on plein air, it's quite good as well. I'm just taking photos of the process as I do this. So, okay, so we've got our dark values in. So now I'm going to start painting the areas that are in light. So I'm going to go back to the clouds. I'm going to start painting the areas that are in light on the clouds, and I'm also going to mix in some of the highlights in with the shadows. So I'm using titanium white and just a little bit of burnt sienna. And burnt sienna, it kind of creates a nice, it sort of gives it a nice kind of like orangey, pinkish glow to it. And it mixes in really nicely with the shadow mix, because I've used those two colours in there anyway. I'll be keeping the clouds, even the highlights, darker during the blocking stage. And then I'll be adding some lighter value colour in the next session that I work on for this. So yeah, I'm just starting these highlights here. So you might not be able to see it that well on the video, but there's a bit of burnt sienna, probably a little bit too much maybe. That's okay. Overall, you want to keep your paintings a bit kind of tonally darker when you're blocking them in and when you're initially working on them, and that's so that you don't like exhaust your whole kind of value range from the start. You want to still be able to have a place to go with it. So I always save my lightest lights until the end of the painting, and usually it's when you're adding those final highlights that's when the painting really pops and comes alive. But if you've used your lightest lights right from the very start, then you'll find as you get into the painting later on, then you've got nowhere else to go with your tonal, your value range, and then your painting can end up looking flat, if that makes sense. So I keep it a little bit on the darker side and then build up those lighter values as I work through the painting. So I just want a little bit of cleaner color here, just to start with, and then I'll mix some of this in. So actually, the clouds here in the distance, I could probably use a little bit more burnt sienna in those. So if you want to make things like clouds and snow look like it's in the distance, then just mix in a little bit of burnt sienna. So it just darkens the values a little bit. And it means it starts to sit back in the landscape, because obviously white is the lightest that we can go. It's the lightest value, but white really comes forward in the painting. So that's a way you can kind of push it back in the landscape. Okay, so I'm just painting these. There's a few clouds that are kind of hovering above the mountains here. I just saw another question here. Thanks very much for the answer. Do you prepare the canvas with gesso? Will this live be recorded? Yeah, I'm recording this live. As I say, I'm new to live streaming on YouTube, but it's my intention to post this as a video afterwards. So yeah, you'll be able to rewatch it, hopefully. As I say, I'm just trying new things here. Right then, and there's some lighter value color on this side. So yeah, sorry, just going back to this linen canvas here. It's already pre-primed actually, and the ones that I bought, at least there were a pile of offcuts that I got from an art shop in Sydney in Australia actually, when I was over there recently, and I think this is an acrylic primed linen canvas here. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to start blending in some of these highlights in with the shadow areas. Again, I'm just using loose gestural brush marks. Let's see what this looks like. I just wanted to sort of communicate some, like a sort of heaviness to this cloud. And this is the beauty of using these flat brushes as well. They're really good for this type of painting. Alrighty. And I'm going to drag the brush marks downwards here. Actually, I'll do that more in just a moment, because I wanted to sort of communicate it like there's kind of like rain in the distance. So another thing with color mixing in general is color harmony. So this is where your painting looks nice when the viewer looks at it and the colors are all working well. And the way we can get color harmony is by using similar colors throughout the painting. So you'll see so far, like in this shadow mix, I used ultramarine blue with burnt sienna and titanium white and a little alizarin crimson. And then I've used those same colors in this, obviously with less titanium white. And then, even here in this green, it's got ultramarine blue in it. So it like ties in all the zones together, so they've all got relationships with each other. And yeah, it means that because I'm using similar colors throughout the painting, it just looks a lot more harmonious. And this is part of the reason I use a kind of more limited palette. I mean, every artist is different. I'm someone that finds having too many colors on the palette starts getting a bit confusing. Yeah, so I prefer to use less colors. I've found a lot of the time you can mix a lot of the colors anyway. As in, when I say mix a lot of the colors, like the pre-mixed colors you can buy, a lot of the time you can just mix them, with red, yellow, and blue. I've found that quite often. So by using a more limited palette, you kind of like you're more likely to be using all your colors on the palette, if you see what I mean. And it helps to create that harmony in the painting. So I'll be doing more work to this cloud in just a moment, but I'm just making a start on it here anyway. I want to create more of a heaviness here in just a moment. Probably actually just go back to that. Let's just get some more paint on there, because I want to kind of like create the illusion that it's, there's like a heavy sort of shower there. So there's quite a bit of heaviness here. Okay, I'll leave that for the moment, because I'm definitely going to be coming back to it. So the next thing I'm going to do is paint the sky. And as I said, the skies are one of the more lighter values to be found in the landscape. So I'll just mix up the colour for the sky, and I'll see if there's any more questions. So yeah, what I'm using here, the sky mix is simple. In general, I just like to keep my colour mixes more simple anyway, just because the colour's cleaner. With some colours it's a bit more difficult, especially when you're mixing greens, because I mix my own greens in general, with yellow and blue. So but other than that, yeah, I try and keep my colours more simple, so it just looks cleaner. So anyway, this sky mix I'm about to, or at least that I'm mixing at the moment, so this is ultramarine blue, titanium white, and a bit of phthalo green. So the blue here in the sky is kind of a sort of a greenish blue color, and yeah, so phthalo green obviously adds that green element to the color. So ultramarine blue, it kind of has like a red undertone to it, so adding the phthalo green yeah, greens it up a little bit. So we'll see what that looks like. You can create really nice colors for sky just with ultramarine blue and titanium white. And I found if you want to paint those kind of like, deep blues that you get in like mountain landscapes, then that can be a really good color combination as well. So hang on, we'll just see. Let's just see what this looks like. Might make that a bit lighter. Okay, let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. Generally as well, in terms of the colour and value of the blue, it's usually darker the sort of further up in the landscape or up into the sky that you go, and then it's lighter as you get nearer the horizon. So I'll just see if there's any questions a second. Evening from South Africa. Oh, awesome. Hello. Let's see. From John P. Hi Sam, fun to see a live stream. Have you done many of these live streams lately? Can't believe I have missed this before. This is the first live stream I've ever done on YouTube, so I'm totally new to all this. It's a bit of an experiment, see what happens. If this is a success, I'll probably do some more of them. I have done a couple of live streams on Instagram recently. Sort of it was a sort of a warm up for doing it on YouTube, really. I did do a live stream, I think a couple of years ago on TikTok, but I haven't done that many. But it was something I wanted to get into. It's kind of totally different when you're literally painting live. Yeah, you know, you're sort of really putting yourself out there, and obviously I'm creating a painting here, and hopefully the painting will be a success. But yeah, I mean, as I say, if this live stream goes well, I'll probably do some more of them. But yeah, I just wanted to try it out, really. It's also nice and quiet here in New Zealand this morning. I think I don't know what time it is. There you go. It's 5:45 in the morning. I like this time of day. I normally get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, spend a few hours working on my art business. It's nice and quiet. My kids are still asleep as well, so I can usually get a lot more work done. Okay, so I'm just marking in these cloud areas here. I usually find that once you start painting the sky, then it starts bringing the painting to life. Hey John, oh thanks for the super chat, man. That's really appreciated. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it all helps to keep the paintbrushes in my hands. Okay, so and I want some blue sky in this part as well. So I mean, the cool thing with oil paints is they're quite forgiving. I actually think they're the easiest paints to use. I did for a long time ago paint with acrylics a lot, and I still sometimes paint with acrylics. But I found with oils you've got much more time to sort of blend the colours. You don't have to worry about them drying so quickly, obviously. The other thing with oils as well is the colours tend to sort of stay true to what you've added to the canvas, whereas acrylics, and this happens with gouache as well, is that they tend to dry darker than what you initially put down. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you're using those mediums. I'm certainly finding this out with gouache at the moment, that they dry darker than the paint that you put down. So I have to account for that. But with oils, that's not really the case, which is good. When you're painting with oils, even if you've never painted with them before, I would always use an artist quality oil. So don't use the student ones if you can help it, because the student ones, they tend to not have as much kind of like color, like pigment density in them, and often there's kind of like a lot of carrier or filler in them, and it's almost like a bit of a sort of false economy, really. You're much better off spending the money and getting some artist quality oils. And I know some of them, some of these paints are really expensive, especially, when you're buying things like cadmium colors as well. They're not cheap, but I've found that actually things like cadmium yellow and cadmium red, actually, like they'll last you a good long time anyway, so you won't be able to buy too much of that. Right, so we need to tidy this up a bit more, so I think I'll come back in with my highlight mix here. So I definitely want this side of the cloud to be lighter. Certainly, when I come for round 2 on this painting, that's when I'll really be able to work in the highlights. So this is probably more about sort of forming the shape of the clouds, and just getting these dark values and shadows in. Part of the reason I say sort of dark values and shadows is because really the cloud here is in shadow, but the value of it's actually like reasonably light. It's a light grey, but I still consider it kind of like one of the, you know, the darks in the scene that I'm painting. So the cloud's kind of like quite wispy here. Let's get some of that shadow mix. Oh, hang on, that's the one I was using for the sky. Just give me a moment. Feel free to ask me some questions. If you've got any questions about painting, oil painting, or just anything, let me know where you are as well, where you're coming from. It's a cool thing about the internet, that you can just, like, people from all over the world can just, like, tune in and watch a video and chat. Okay. So probably what I'll do actually, I'll need to wait for this cloud to dry, I think, but I'll certainly break it up more. Using my sky mix, basically. The cool thing about using the sky mix is you can help shape the clouds with it. It's like filling in the negative spaces around the clouds. So it's another thing you can do. But yeah, I just wanted to communicate this kind of like showery, heavy cloud. So we'll bring that right down there. Another thing I forgot to paint in was there's a distant mountain there. So I'll mark that in now. That's over there. So that's lighter in value than this. Okay. Okay. Right, I'm just going to take a quick photo of that. I normally photograph all the processes of my painting as I go along, just so that I can keep a record. Also, I have a blog on my website as well, so sometimes I write painting demonstrations. Thanks for that, John. Again, for the super chat, it's really appreciated. Here's to the new live stream endeavor. Yeah, I'll definitely do some more of these, I think. Let's see, we've got another question. What is the dream location you'd love to go and plein air paint? That is a great question. I'll tell you what, because I've got loads of them. Well, I mean, I love painting landscapes in general. Certainly here in New Zealand, there's some really beautiful landscapes, especially in the South Island. I mean, I love painting mountains and stuff. I haven't been down to the South Island for a while now, because I live right in the far north of the country in Northland, so it's a bit. I'm not really too fond of the cold, so it's a bit warmer up there. That's part of the reason I live up there anyway. But yeah, I would love to go and spend some time in America and just like retrace some of the footsteps of some of my painting heroes that come from there. I just think also there's some really good American plein air painters as well. They're always the ones that sort of leap out at me when I'm scrolling through Instagram as well. So yeah, I'd love to go over there and paint. That would be awesome. That's I hope to be able to do that at some point in the future. Where else would I like to paint? I mean, I like painting seascapes and beach scenes. I mean, I'd happily paint anywhere really if it was a really awesome landscape. I would definitely love to paint it. All right, so next I'm going to paint the water here, and the water's kind of like reflecting some of the sky and some of the clouds, so it's a sort of very pale blue. So I think to start with, I'm just going to use my cloud mix, but I'm just going to mix in a little bit more ultramarine blue and titanium white. So let's see what that looks like. And then I'll probably actually even, I'll probably actually paint or mix in a little bit of the cloud mix as well. So we'll see how we get on. Right, so that's... So I'm just marking that in. So I'm thinking about the colour harmony the whole time as well. So is everyone else in the chat here, are you oil painters, or do you paint landscapes or paint with acrylics or gouache? I'm also going to be doing more videos on painting in gouache as well. As I say, I just think it's a really, it's a great medium to use, and you can create some beautiful paintings quite quickly. Yeah, so we'll just... I'm just going to mix in a little bit of the, just some of my sky mix here. Also, if you want to learn more about painting landscapes and just, you know, other aspects of oil painting, I've got a Patreon channel that's just $5 a month, and each month I upload like a full-length painting tutorial video, and then I upload other bonus content during the month. So I'll link that in the description below. I'm working on the next video at the moment. It's going to be pretty cool, so that will be out next week. And then I've got some videos for sale on the website as well. But yeah, certainly I might do some more of these live streams here on YouTube. So yeah, there's the water marked in. I'll add a little bit more detail to it in the next painting session. So I think the next thing I'll work on is these distant mountains, and we'll start getting some of these greens in. So I know green is one of those colours that many landscape artists have the most difficulty with, because I mean, if you get them right, they look amazing, and if you get them wrong, they look awful. They can really look garish and overwhelming in your painting. And a lot of the time it's usually because the greens are too saturated. And I found also to make your greens look natural is again using some of the colours that you've already used in your painting. So this is part of the reason I mix my my own greens, which I'm just going to start now anyway. I'm sorry you can't see my paint palette here, but what I'm doing is I'm starting off with yellow ochre and a little bit of cadmium yellow and some ultramarine blue. So this is like forming the base of my green. And then I'll mix in some titanium white. That's going to make the value lighter. It's also going to desaturate it at the same time. Now, probably for this more kind of distant green, I'm just going to mix in a little bit of alizarin crimson, I think. You could also, I mean, it depends what you're painting. You can mix in like burnt sienna. But that red element that's in the alizarin crimson is opposite to green on the colour wheel. So it just knocks it back, desaturates it, makes it look a bit more natural. We'll just see how we do here. And they're really quite rich greens, so I'm just going to mix in a little bit of phthalo green as well. So that creates these more kind of emerald tones in the green. So we'll just see what we come up with here. I don't mix all these colours together thoroughly, because I like to have like the sort of individual hue of the paint coming through. But let's see what we've got here. So that's way too saturated there, and it's also the value's too dark. So what I'm doing now is I'm just adding in some more titanium white, and I think I'll add a little bit of more yellow ochre into it. Let's see what that looks like. That looks better, but it's still too saturated. One thing I've noticed is even when you mix it on your palette, when you actually get it onto the canvas, it can still look too dark. Let's see what that looks like. That looks better. Let's start with that. I can always make the value even lighter in just a moment, but we'll start with that. And actually, even these mountains just behind are a different color as well. So hang on. I think for that, I'll just mix in some more yellow ochre. So another thing with canvases, you see that I'm painting on a white surface here. There are many artists that will tone the surface with like a layer of burnt sienna or burnt umber or something like that, just to warm it up. And this is also a really good thing to do as well. I generally don't do it so much anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with toning your canvas, but I found I was painting with a toned surface for a few years, but then I found that my darks were coming out too dark, and it's like I was getting lost in my darks, and then I'd have to make like a kind of value readjustment sort of midway through the painting, and it actually just became really annoying. And I found that just by painting on a white canvas that my colours just look a lot cleaner. So I've gone back to just painting on just with a white canvas, but it's a matter of preference. I mean, I'd actually like recommend you try both and see how you get on, see which you prefer. But yeah, I prefer just painting on a white surface now. So I'm just getting in some of the greens here. So these are more in the mid-ground. At this time of year, especially when we've had a lot of rain as well, there's you get a lot of nice like rich grass greens. So that's part of the reason why I've mixed in a little bit of phthalo green into the mix. But what I'm going to do next now is just paint the suggestion of some of these willow trees. So I'm pretty much using the same colours, but I'm just going to make the value a bit darker, just so that they stand out more. Let's see. So I'm just adding in more yellow ochre, a little bit of cadmium yellow, and some more ultramarine blue. We'll just see how that goes. Cadmium yellow is a pretty high chroma colour, so generally I only sort of use this more in the kind of foreground and midground. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's all right there, I think. Because actually these trees here, it doesn't matter if they're a bit darker, because on the next session that I have on this oil painting, I can lighten them. In fact, actually, I think this green here that I've just mixed will make a good kind of half tone for these trees here. So as I said before, not at all worried about detail. So I'm just getting these loose brush marks in, and it will be the next painting session. That's when I'll start adding in some of the detail. I'll just see if we've got any more questions. Let's see. Where are we getting? John says we have quite a variety of landscapes here in the US. It's just so huge, so getting around takes a long time. Yeah, it's true. I actually lived in the USA for 2 years in 2006, because I used to be an arborist. So I worked in the tree industry for over 10 years. I was climbing trees, and then got into tree consultancy, but I started my tree career in the United States. I managed to get a job there it was a place called New Rochelle. It's in Westchester County. And don't know how I managed to pull that off. It was just like right place at the right time. They sorted out all my visa and everything. And yeah, I worked there for 2 years. So I was doing tree work sort of in and around New York, because we weren't far away from New York City. And then I did tree work in England, and then over here in New Zealand. But yeah, I remember, I didn't get to see much of the United States, but I certainly, went to upstate New York a few times, and there's some, beautiful deciduous woodlands there. And now I'm just like, because I've been painting on and off since I was a child. I always liked landscape art, but at that point, although the previous year I'd taken up painting again, I kind of had sort of ended up stopping just because I was working so much. So I just didn't have time to paint. But yeah, I'd love to go over to the United States again and just spend some time painting over there. It'd be awesome. Okay, so here I'm going to paint some of these half tones that are in the tree. So I'm pretty much using the same color that I've used for this tree, and in just a moment, once I've got these like main colors down, I'm going to go back across the whole painting and just sort of restate some of these dark values anyway. So that's something I do normally towards the end of when I've blocked in a painting. Because as I say, when you're blocking a painting, you want to make sure that you've kind of got everything sorted out. Your colours and values are working. You want it a little bit tonally darker, so you've got plenty of room to add those lighter values. And yeah, that's what the blocking in stage is for. And then it really makes it a lot easier to start building up the the painting overall and adding the detail and all those little things. So I mean, even with this approach, even starting off with really loose brushwork, you can go as loose or as detailed as you like. So yeah, these are just some of the half tones that I'm painting in here. I'm probably just increase the saturation a little bit, and I'm just mixing in a little bit more cadmium yellow, a little bit more ultramarine blue, and some phthalo green. And I'm actually, for these trees here, I'm just going to mix in a small amount of cadmium red. I just like to have a little red element in my greens. As I say, it just helps to, I think it makes the greens look kind of just more organic and natural. So I'm marking these. I'm almost treating this painting like a sort of plein air painting at this stage, because when you paint outdoors, it's kind of that style of painting sort of encourages you to sort of work loose. And even I've done loads of plein air paintings where I've added more detail in the studio and then just turned them into sort of detailed paintings. So I'm just marking these half tones here, and these I think these are sycamores here, or sycamore maples. Yeah, what in America what they call sycamores, in England we call them London planes. Okay, so that's coming along. Hang on, I'm just going to take another photo and I will see if we've got any more questions. Oh, what's going on there? Hang on. Okay, let's see if we've got any more questions here. So, hang on. So apologies if I don't pronounce this correctly. Gilherme Lindenberg Mendes says, after you finish this study, how long will it take to completely dry? If you put the painting in the direct sun, will it dry more faster? So I'm mixing in Liquin Original into the paint, so that will that really does speed up the drying time. In fact, I've found that sometimes the paint's already starting to get a tack on it after about like an hour or two. So in theory, this should be touch dry by this time tomorrow. But normally I'll leave the painting for, a couple of extra days just to make sure it's really properly dry. I think the heat does have an effect on it, because I've noticed when I paint outdoors on plein air, that the paint actually, you can see that it's sort of drying quite quickly, usually within an hour. And I have had some times when I've been out, painting outdoors, and it's been a hot day, and then after a couple of hours, I've found that it's already the paint's already drying on my palette. So I would say the sun and the heat does have an effect on it. What I'm doing now is I just want to paint the areas that are in light on this mountain here, and it's a low kind of pale, sort of low chroma pale mountain colour. So there's a lot of this kind of straw coloured tussock grass that grows on these mountains. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing yellow ochre with some burnt sienna, ultramarine blue and titanium white. So the value here's got to be pretty light. So let's just see what we come up with. Let's see, we'll try that. That's a bit too dark and a bit too saturated. So I'm going to mix in some more titanium white. So titanium white, it not only makes the value lighter, but I found it has a desaturating effect as well on the colour. Yes, that's probably a better colour there. So what's happening here is not only a pale low chroma colour, and as I said, burnt sienna is a dark orange. So when it's mixed with the yellow ochre, it's still a kind of orangey colour. And then the blue, when that's mixed together, because it's opposite to orange on the colour wheel, it has a desaturating effect. So it takes the intensity out of the colour, and then the titanium white to get the value that I want. So there we go, that's a much better colour there for this mountain. And then there's this other kind of hill there that's in shadow, but so can you see here that that sits nicely with this mountain in the shadows here? So if this was too saturated, it would just, you'd see it straight away. It wouldn't look right, and it would sort of come forward in the painting. Could probably actually use some of this colour for this particular hill as well, just to desaturate it a bit. Okay, so we're starting to get somewhere with this, and I'll come back to this. I'll come back to this tree here. And let's have a look at some more questions as well. David Hunt. Hi Sam, lucky I found you on this morning. Are you painting on cab? Not sure what that word means, but I'm painting on a loose linen canvas. Why are there lines on the canvas? That's from Carlos Arts. The reason is it's because the canvas was rolled up, and although I've tried to sort of stretch it as much as I can with the tape, you're still seeing a bit of the lines in it, unfortunately. But when the painting's finished, if you were to stretch it, those lines would obviously go. So let's see what else we got. John says, have you ever tried considering concept art style landscape, fantasy type stuff? No, I haven't actually. I would be open to it. I've got a friend that does it. He makes some really cool fantasy art. Let's see what else we've got. Yes, chemical reaction with the oils. Yep, that's true. And Vood is an oil painter. Holy crap, Sam, been following forever, never seen you paint live before. Well, this is the first time I've gone live on YouTube anyway. So yeah, this is really sort of a test run kind of experiment here. Just something I wanted to do, basically. I just wanted to try live streaming and, you know, be able to sort of connect with you all and answer your questions as well whilst I paint. So yeah, I'll probably we'll see how this one goes, but it seems to be going all right so far. So I'll probably do some more of these. Yeah, I mean, let me know in the comments section if you want me to do some more live streams, and perhaps next time I can actually like schedule it properly and you know, give you some warning, because because this is an experiment. I've never live streamed before. I didn't want to sort of commit myself to setting a time for a live stream in case it all just, you know, went wrong. It's the first time I've used the live stream function, so it's just sort of getting to know how it works as well. So that's why I've just sort of suddenly come on live without warning. But yeah, perhaps next time I will properly schedule a live stream. Right. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to going to come back to this area of the tree because that's more lighter in value. But I'm actually gonna paint the grass in the foreground. So I'm using my existing green mix, and I'm just adding more titanium white, and then I'm just readjusting the colors and the values, just adding a little bit more kind of yellow ochre, a bit of cadmium yellow, a bit of ultramarine blue, and cadmium red as well, just a little bit of cadmium red. So we'll see what that looks like anyway. Okay, probably going to mix in a little bit of phthalo green as well, although that's actually quite a nice colour there. It can be a real sort of subtle adjustments to the colour when mixing greens, because sometimes it's really easy to just suddenly add too much cadmium yellow or too much phthalo green, and then it upsets the whole mixture and you've got to remix a load of it again, which is what I've just done now. That's all good. Right, let's see what this looks like anyway. Yeah, that's not a bad colour. And again, I've got room to add even lighter value colour here. Oops, hang on a minute. I've just got to retype in the password to my computer where I've got my reference photo, because it starts snoozing after a while. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, just give me a second. There we go, we're back. So I'll just go over this green mix again. So we've got yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, and ultramarine blue. That's kind of like the base of the green. And then I've got titanium white. So that's to get the value that we want. It's going to help desaturate it as well. And then to add some kind of like emerald tones in there, I've mixed in a small amount of phthalo green. For the areas of the grass where it's kind of more straw coloured, I can mix in, I'll do it now actually, you can mix in like more like yellow ochre. So we'll just see that. So you can see there's some more kind of like yellowish tones where there's some more that like straw coloured grass. And it helps to just add interest to the grass as well and add texture to it. So we'll put that there. And then also in this part, I've noticed there's some kind of like reds in there. I'll just pick up my computer and I'll show you the reference photo. You can see there's some kind of like red elements in this part as well. So I'll add some of that in. And what I'm doing there is I've just mixed in a little bit of cadmium red. So we'll see what that looks like. Probably maybe a bit more. Could maybe even mix in some alizarin crimson, but we'll see how we got on with that. No, I think the cadmium red looks better. So yeah, this is just helping to add a bit of interest to the grass. And just going back to the colour harmony, so remember what I was talking about before, like using common colours throughout the painting. So in this grass here, I've got ultramarine blue and titanium white, which I've used in these mountains and in the clouds. And then here we've got, this has got yellow ochre in the mix, as well as titanium white and ultramarine blue. And that's also in the grass as well. So there's all these kind of like relationships between the colours and these zones of the painting. And that's what's going to keep your colours looking harmonious. So you can even like paint some of the most, simplest of landscapes, and if they've got really nice colours, they can look really good. I've also found, I've learned this from Edgar Payne's book, Composition of Outdoor Painting, but it's often better to just try and simplify the scene that you're painting. And really, it really is a case of less is more, because you can end up spoiling a composition just by having like way too much detail in it or way too much going on. So it's good in some landscapes, I think, to sort of create some space in the painting. I mean, I like to think my paintings are all about sort of just communicating the like the atmosphere of the scene that I'm painting. Mixing, I think, a bit more of this red along here. So for a lot of this grass, I'm just using these like, sweeping gestural brush marks, just using this broad end of the brush. This is why I love using flat brushes, mainly for painting landscapes. These are the brushes I use most. I also like filbert brushes. They're really useful. I'll show you what they look like. This is a number 3 filbert brush, but you probably can't see it that well, but it's basically, it's got a like rounded edge to the bristle, so you can use the end of it for more kind of like finer marks, but then you can still use this sort of broad end of the brush. So that's a really good brush to use, really good for painting trees. And round brushes as well, I use more for painting things like stems. And then I also use from time to time as well bristle dagger brushes. They're also really good for painting grass and tree foliage. But I'm not really one for like using really, really small brushes for, my paintings. The smallest brushes I'd be using at the end of my painting, where I'm just adding some kind of like final details. I don't like spending too long on paintings either. I like to kind of try and paint them as quickly as possible, partly because I get bored, but I don't know, if you spend too long on them, I wonder if you can end up sort of losing some of the sort of aliveness out of them. But everyone's different anyway. That's just my opinion. So I'm just gonna add some darker value color in the grass as well, just in areas. And what I've done is I've just added more cadmium yellow and ultramarine blue into my existing mix, and some phthalo green. So there's some kind of like darker areas along here in the foreground with these more kind of richer grassy greens. So yeah, just wanted to create some texture in the grass. Probably more in the foreground, I'd use more sort of like, vertical brush motions, and then as we get to the midground here, I can just paint them in a more sort of horizontal direction, if that makes sense. And I'll be able to add more detail to this later on in the painting. I think I'll just add some more yellows in there, so just bear with me a sec. So what I'm doing is I've got my existing green mix, so I've mixed in now some titanium white and some yellow ochre. So we're just going to add a few yellows in there. Oops, a bit too much white in there. There we go, oops. I mean, I'll certainly be adding more detail to this in the next session of the painting. I'll just see if we've got any more questions. Hang on a minute. Let's see. I love live streams. It's really fun to have direct interaction. Yeah, definitely. I'm enjoying this, actually. I think it's really cool. Oh, that's awesome. You want more live streams? Awesome. Oh my God, Samuel is doing a live stream. Yep, certainly am. Hello. A dog I'm doing in oils could be my first finished oil painting. It took over 4 months. Yeah, I mean, some paintings really can take a long, long time. And yeah, I've actually got some paintings that I started over a year ago, and then I've got a seascape that I've started a year ago, and I haven't done anything to it, and I'm thinking I need to like just finish it. But yeah, in general, I mean, I just love painting. It's my life. I've always loved landscape art, and I'm learning just like you are as well, still learning new things. And but I like helping people as well, especially as you know, some people I see they had the same issues with their painting that I had many years ago. And actually, I was the point I was sort of reaching out for help, and no one would help me, and it was really frustrating. But there was actually one artist who helped me in the end. That was Andrew Tischler. Well, I'm eternally grateful to him. But in you know, I reached out to him in 2014 just because I sort of plateaued with my painting, and I was wanting to do it more. Also, wasn't enjoying my job at all, and realizing that it wasn't what I wanted to do for a career anyway, or at least you know, being an arborist for the rest of my working life. So I kind of like plateaued with my oil painting, and I couldn't figure out where I was going wrong. And I've never been to art school either, so that's the other thing. I was mostly self-taught, but like Andrew really helped me, and we ran two art tours together in the South Island and New Zealand in 2016. So in 2015, I was like, you know, if I'm going to be working with you, I should probably come and meet you. So I stayed with him in Melbourne for a couple of weeks where he was living at the time, and we just, you know, he just helped me go through my whole painting process, and you know, get really just like explain things in a manner that was really easy for me to understand. And I was like, oh my God, like, you know, if I'd have learned this to start with, a lot of it, you know, color theory stuff, I would have saved myself a load of time in all these like failed paintings, because I was painting intuitively and not really understanding what I was doing. So yeah, so now I want to sort of teach that, yeah, help you guys with it as well. So I think I'll leave that for the moment, and now I'm just going to paint this part of the tree. I'm just going to take another quick photo for records. Okay. And we'll just see if we've got any more questions. Hello from the Netherlands. Hello, great to have you here. Yeah, we love Tish also. Yeah, I mean, he's an amazing painter. I learned so much from him. I've been out plein air painting with him quite a few times as well. He obviously lives here now in New Zealand. So Tischler videos led me to your videos. It's the beauty of artist camaraderie. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Yeah, my sort of painting style's evolving differently, just because I'm kind of more, I prefer that kind of like looser brushwork, but I'm really all about the colours and values, but I still like a little bit of detail as well, so I'm sort of trying to find that balance between the two. You know, Rowan Carey, Andre's ex-student, he's been helping me with Andrew. Oh, cool. Yeah, I follow Rowan on Instagram, actually. I've spoken to him a few times. Yeah, his work's really good. Okie dokie. So I'm going to go back to these trees here, and I'm going to add a bit more. So I'm still using this existing green that I've used for the grass here, and I'm just adding more cadmium yellow into the mix, and perhaps a little bit of yellow ochre. So the tree here, it's only just got like a new sort of set of leaves on it, so it's kind of a sort of yellowy green colour. So I'm just marking that in now. And certainly this tree has some of that in there. So another thing when painting trees as well, because obviously it depends how detailed you want to go with them. These are obviously sort of get more in the mid-ground. I mean, these are like full-size poplar trees, so it's probably about, you know, like 25-30 meters tall. But as this is sort of further away in the painting, I wouldn't want to make these trees kind of overly detailed. But what I do to start with is I just treat them as masses, so just shapes, and just get those those general kind of colours down, and then you can and then I'll start building up the detail probably in the next session. But with this type, as I say, where it's situated in the painting, I'm not going to be overly detailed in it anyway. I mean, you definitely could do if you wanted. I'll probably go for, I don't know if you've heard of the artist Peder Mork Monstead. He was born in the 1800s, and just an amazing landscape painter. You should definitely check him out. Peder Mork Monstead. In fact, someone's created a Facebook and Instagram page for him, so I'd go and follow that. But I just think he had the perfect balance of just, you know, like loose painterly brushwork, but also some detail in there as well. And his paintings just look, they just look superbly detailed. And then you look closely at the brushwork and it's kind of really, you know, not complicated at all. Alrighty, so we're getting close to having the blocking stage here almost finished. So I'm now just filling in some of these gaps along here. So look, there's a bit of grass. There's a, I'm just marking in these willow trees here. What I'll do is I'll add, there's some shadows in there, so I'll add those in just a moment when I come to just sort of restate these dark valleys. And I, you know, just filling in these gaps as well. And just tidying up the whole painting in general. In fact, I will come to that next, I think. So where's my, so I'm using my, the green shadow mix that I made before. So this was ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. So that's actually going to really, it's going to mix in really nicely with this green that I've already made, because it contains those colours. In fact, I could probably even mix in just a dash of cadmium yellow as well, because it's not like a really dark value, or at least certainly in this tree anyway, but it is quite dark. So it's just going to create a bit of texture in the tree. There's certainly some darker value colour here. Now, as I say, in the next kind of like session that I have on this painting, I'll certainly be adding a lot more detail. So I'll be able to like really sort of model the paint and just really refine the shapes of these trees. I'll just add a bit of shadow into this one. And there's certainly some quite dark shadows in these sycamore trees down here. And it's just mixing in really nicely with the green that I've already put down. And again, that's because these colours that I'm mixing in are already in this green. So I try and economise on the brushes that I'm using, just basically because I don't enjoy cleaning them at all. So if I can use fewer brushes, it works out better. So you can see also having dark values in your painting, certainly darkest darks, they also come forward as well. So white comes forward in the painting, but also dark values, dark blues, black even, all come forward in the scene that you're painting. So that's something to keep in mind. So now I'm just going to paint the suggestion of some shadows along here in these willow trees. There's mostly willow trees along here. Yeah, New Zealand, it was introduced with a lot of English and European trees, so especially down here in this part of New Zealand, which is it's the region, it's called Otago, and there's a lot of willow trees, you know, sycamore, maples, Lombardy poplars. That's another really common tree down there. So it's cool actually. You get the autumn colours or fall colours in well, you'd get them in March, April, May, and June, because that's our autumn on this side of the world. The seasons are obviously in reverse. But yeah, it's pretty. I mean, this area is so beautiful. I lived down here for about 3.5 years. That's when I quit my job in Auckland and moved down here to spend time painting, because I just really wanted to be an artist, basically. So I moved down there to sort of be amongst my subject and paint the mountains. I did a lot of plein air painting whilst I was down there, which really helped with my painting process. Plein air painting will really help to improve your painting, because you're really kind of like forced to like look at the landscape and observe the colours and values that are in the landscape. Just with this bit, I'm just going to quickly changing the subject here. I'm just going to paint. There's a bit of shadow here in this part of the grass, so I'm just going to paint that in. I'm using my shadow mix. I've also mixed in just a little bit of alizarin crimson as well. So this part's kind of in shadow. So there we go. So it's coming together. Let's see if we've got any more questions. Let's have a look. Right, okay. There's much difference when painting in linen canvas from 300 gram paper. Yeah, well, obviously, if you're painting with oils, you'd probably want to be painting on canvas or linen, or wood is really cool to paint on. What else have we got? Certainly gouache paintings I paint on like watercolor paper. It's I think the one I'm using, it's like a sort of cotton watercolor paper. Hang on, Mike Fairless, see my cue above. Hang on, did I miss that? Can't see that one. Oh, sorry, I've just found it. Here we go. Will you do any more plein air painting videos with Andrew and Freeman? Really enjoyed those. Yeah, I'm not sure is the answer to that. Andrew lives in the South Island. It can be quite difficult to get to for me, just because I have children, and it's quite a long way to go. But it would be awesome to paint with Andrew and Freeman again, because it was a lot of fun, that's for sure. So yeah, maybe we might be able to make that happen sometime. I'm certainly due to meet up with Andrew at some point to go plein air painting, so I'm sure we'll try and organise something. Let's see, what else have we got here? When you stretch this canvas, will the painting not deform? No, it shouldn't do. No, I mean, I've actually when I've sold paintings overseas, I've actually in the past even taken the canvas off the stretcher bar so that they can be re-stretched again, and I haven't had any problems with it. So that should be fine. Right, I'm just going to like tidy up just these general areas of the painting. So I'm hang on a minute. I'm just going to work on just this background a little bit. So there was this kind of like background mountain here, which I didn't mark in thoroughly to start with. So we'll put that in. That's and then I'm just going to fill in the negative spaces around these trees and just perhaps work on these, maybe a little bit more to these clouds, but not too much at this stage. I really need to wait for these clouds to dry. Because I want to create this kind of like rainy effect, but I've really got to wait for it to dry first before I can work on that part of it. But for the moment, I'm just going to fill in just a few negative spaces around the trees. So painting around the trees like that's another way you can you know, add to the form and definition of your tree. And there's sort of quite a heavy looking cloud here that I want to kind of emphasize a bit. So it's the same colours that I was using a moment ago. So ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, titanium white, and a little alizarin crimson. And probably actually the liquid's, I think, already starting to dry a little bit. So I can just layer on some thicker paint already. I really like sort of painting this kind of like texture within the clouds. But I wanted to make this a sort of kind of big, like gloomy cloud. So we'll see how that goes. Probably leave that like that at the moment. And yeah, one of the last things I'm going to do here is I'm just going to paint the suggestion of some stems and branches in the trees. So let's see what we've got here. I might use a synthetic round for this one if I can find one. What we got here? Okay, I'm using a number 0 synthetic round, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint the suggestion of a couple of stems and branches. So I'm mixing ultramarine blue with some burnt sienna. So that's pretty much sort of creating a near black. I don't use pre-mixed blacks. I always mix my own. Although maybe I might try using a pre-mixed black, but it's a colour I generally kind of avoid. So anyway, I'm just going to, yeah, we'll just paint the suggestion of a few stems and branches here. I mean, I'll likely be painting over these a little bit in the next session, but I just want to sort of mark out, you know, where they generally are. As I say, at this stage, not at all worried about detail. Oh, hang on, there's too much burnt sienna in there. Need a bit more ultramarine blue. And oops, there we go, there's a main stem there. I mean, this is something I'll be able to work on a lot more in the next painting session. Just paint a few stems and branches in these sycamores as well. Okay, and I'm just going to fill in the gaps here as well. So remember, this is the blocking in stage. So there's obviously, you know, a lot more to do on this. So we've just got like the sort of general basic information down, and it's really the colours and values that I'm interested in at the moment. And this is like my base layer. So in the next painting session, it's going to make it a lot easier to start building up the detail. I'll certainly be adding a lot more details to the clouds. That's definitely something I'm going to be working on. But just going back to the clouds, I mean, it depends also on the time of day that you're painting them, but I've found that if you just want to paint your general kind of like fluffy clouds, or even sort of slightly, you know, stormy clouds like these ones, and it's during the day, that just a mix of ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, titanium white, and a little alizarin crimson, that's a great colour mix to use for painting clouds. And then and then for highlights, just mixing in titanium white with a little burnt sienna. You could even mixing some yellow ochre into it. But normally when I mix those colours in, I normally do it when it's the kind of like last session on the cloud and I'm painting my highlights, because I don't want to risk like mixing green into the clouds. Okay, I'll just tidy up that mountain as well, and I'll see if we've got any more questions as well. Feel free to ask me some questions. Okay, just tidying up this mountain here in the background. And here as well. There. Okie dokie, let's just see if we've got any more questions. Let's have a look. Chris Silk Rory Ashton. Hi Sam. Hi Chris. I also recently started using gouache after using oils for a few years. How have you found the change? What are the main differences? Has it been a challenge? Yeah, they are certainly a different way of painting, and certainly my first few gouache paintings, when I started them, I was like, oh my god, this is awful. But then as I carried on working with them, with the paintings, I actually found once the layers started to dry and you can layer on more paint over the top, that it was actually really good. I found with gouache painting there's this sort of early stage you kind of like have to go through where the painting just looks ratty as hell and like doesn't look that good. But then once you get through that part and you can start adding some detail to it, I'm finding it just a really enjoyable medium to use. And just I love the convenience of it as well, that you can create something really quickly. So for me, I mean, what I've been doing at the moment is I've got like loads of reference photos that I've been taking over the years, and just so many things that I want to paint, and quite a few of them I've been like, oh, do I want to commit myself to like designing a load of compositions and doing loads of sketches, and then I get into the color study, because I normally do my color studies in oil paints, and then just find that this just isn't going to work. Whereas a gouache painting, what I've been doing recently is I've just been doing these small gouache paintings. I'll actually show you. Hang on a minute, because I've obviously got the one I've done, as my reference for this. But I've just been. This is my book that I've been filling out at the moment. So they're just little paintings and just painting ideas basically, and I've been able to do these most of these paintings within like hour and a half, 2 hours, and they're just ideas for paintings, and I can see straight away whether they're like I want to take these ideas further. For example, like this one here, here, spoiler alert, I was quite pleased with that one. There's a bit of a different one, this sort of mist and mountains and stuff. So that one I decided I want to take that further. So I did a sketch, and I've finished a painting of it. It's actually, spoiler alert, it's going to be the next Patreon video, the next full-length painting tutorial. So if you want to see that, you should subscribe to my Patreon channel. It's only $5 a month. Or you can even subscribe for the whole year for $51 and you save 15%. But yeah, anyway, yeah, it's a way of quickly getting down painting ideas without investing too much time. So gouache has been really good. This was the sketch for the painting that I did for the next Patreon video. So yeah, yeah, I love painting with gouache, and for me, it's definitely here to stay as part of my painting process. Also, you can do plein air paintings with gouache as well, which is another thing that I've done. So that's really cool. Let's just see what other questions have we got. Yeah, just the other thing with gouache, the thing you do have to keep in mind is they dry a bit darker in value than oils, for example. So that's something you do need to keep in mind. But why do you opt for... Oh, hang on, sorry. David Hutton says, nice to see you painting a square format. Interesting, thanks. Yeah, I've been really liking painting on the square format recently because, again, found it's really good for making interesting compositions, especially painting like this, because I really wanted to make a feature of the sky. So just going back to the composition, so we've got a main sort of area of interest here. So not in the middle of the painting, so to the left of the centre, and we've got low horizon here as well. So that's partly so that we can have the clouds in the painting, but also like you don't want your horizon line right in the middle. So you've got like an equally divided, land and sky, because it doesn't look good in a composition at all. So it's either a low horizon or a high horizon. So here we've gone for a lower horizon. John says, why do you opt for gouache instead of watercolor? I think I haven't painted with watercolors in years, but watercolor, it's you work light and then you add your darks, whereas gouache, I can actually almost like pretty much treat it like an oil painting, and it's much more like opaque, so you can actually just layer on thicker layers over existing ones. So you've got a lot more flexibility with gouache. I mean, some of these gouache paintings I've seen online, especially on Instagram, to start with, I was like, I couldn't tell if it was an oil painting or a gouache painting. So that's the cool thing about gouache. But yeah, man, I just love it. So it's just a really great medium. Let's see what else we got here. Vutist, an oil painter. I've recently been using watercolor as my underpainting for oil. I'm also struggling to learn gouache. Yeah, I mean, gouache is... I do personally think gouache is easier than watercolor. And I think gouache, when you first use it, it just takes a little bit of getting used to, because it is different to oil painting. But I've found I've been able to sort of, pick it up pretty quick and, figure out how it works. I think some of the main problems with gouache is just keeping in mind that a lot of the colours dry darker than when they're wet. So that's something you just need to keep in mind. And what else we got here? Your idea book looks sweet. You should consider actually publishing a run of coffee table books with stuff like that. You know what? I'm actually thinking about doing that. So that's a really great suggestion there, John. That's a really good idea, and that's probably something I will do in the future. So keep an eye out for that. Gilherme Lindenberg Mendes. Sorry if I've butchered your name there, man. If I became a member of Patreon, I'll have access to all the older videos. Yes, you do. I've actually got like 3 years worth of videos on there, and I provide lesson notes to a lot of them that you can actually, quite a few of them, you can actually like download and save to your computer. And then there's like bonus content on there as well. So basically the main thing is I'll upload a sort of full tutorial every month and lesson notes. And then normally during the month, I'll upload a bit of like bonus content as well. So the other day I actually uploaded a couple of videos of me painting these little gouache sketches. So, and as I say, the next video that'll be out next week. So basically I'll publish a new video at the start of each month. So next week that's going to be an oil painting of a mountain landscape. As I say, I'm mainly a landscape artist. That's my main thing. So most of the videos on my Patreon are landscapes and seascapes, but I've also been like getting into painting things like urban scenes. I think they're really cool. And like still lifes and that, so I'll be exploring that as well. But yeah, as I say, going back to that, you'll get instant access to like all of the videos that I've published over the last 3 years, so there's a lot of content on there. And what else we got? Gouache is much closer, so it's Voodis, an oil painter. Gouache is much closer to oil than watercolour. James Gurney is a kind of gouache master. Yeah, man, James Gurney's work's brilliant. I've been, in fact, it was watching his videos that kind of really inspired me to start using gouache, because I was looking at James's paintings and I'm like, man, they look so like realistic and so much life and atmosphere in them. And yeah, just that he painted them in gouache. I mean, that guy's got next level talent. So yeah, I love James Gurney's work. It's awesome. It's definitely been an inspiration to my my gouache paintings. But anyway, so I'd say this blocking is complete at the moment. As I say, certainly I just, now what I need to do is wait for this to dry, and then I can really start adding a lot more detail. So at this stage it kind of looks a little bit basic and a bit rough, but that's usually how it goes with the block-in stage. It almost could look like a a plein air painting. Yeah, so I'll wait for this to dry and then I'll start adding some more detail to this. But I'm pretty happy with the way it's coming on at the moment. It's a shame that the I think the video and the live streams probably distorted the colors a little bit, perhaps made them a little bit more saturated than they actually are. But yeah, there's probably not much I can do about that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this live stream. If you've got any more questions just before I go, then feel free to ask them right now. John says, for those who aren't subscribed to Sam's Patreon, his content is worth more than $5 he charges. I highly recommend trying out. Thank you so much for that, John. That's really appreciated. Yeah, I've tried to keep the the cost down as well, so that it's more accessible to everyone. But yeah, so so that's it. Thanks for joining me on this live stream. I've really enjoyed this, actually. Enjoyed this painting, and I'll do my best to upload this as a video. As I say, this is the first time I've done a live stream on YouTube, so it's also an experiment as well. But yeah, hopefully I should be able to make this available afterwards if you want to go back and watch it. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Hope you're all having an awesome day. Happy painting, and I shall see you next time. Cheers, bye.